Hello everyone. So today we won't be analyzing any UFO clips, but instead we're going to be going down the rabbit hole, sharing with you a couple of videos that may actually be connected. This one's going to get weird, so hold on to your seats. Also, don't forget about our November hoodie giveaway. Stick around to the end of the video to find out how you can win. Okay, so the first clip we're about to see is part of a presentation given by Mr. Randy Winters over the Billy Meier ET contacts. Now, I know what a lot of people think about Billy Meier and his claims, and I also know that the story is really kind of sketchy. So just so you know, I have my doubts about Billy Meier's story as well. But let's go ahead and put that aside so we can better ingest the information we're going to be watching today. We're going to be looking at a short excerpt of the more than 1 hour long presentation, and I'll be pausing along the way to point out some things, and also, to be honest, pausing and adding commentary helps us avoid copyright strikes to our channel. So we apologize if it's a little distracting. We'll also be inserting commentary in red text that'll appear on the screen, so watch out for that. Let's go ahead and begin.
Didn't know these were on here. These are some of the Miami pictures, some of the ones that I didn't put on the tape, because I'll kind of go through them here. Here's the kid in Miami. His name is Manny Escondon, is his real name. He's taking notes. Here these discs came in. His girlfriend took the pictures. These are flat-bottom discs. They're made on Earth. They're called VRIL discs, V-R-I-L. They're manufactured down in Brazil. They also have a factory down in New Schwabenland in Antarctica.
A real quick pause for us to notice the name VRIL disc, which we'll be referencing again later on. Also, I want to mention the whole Australian Nazi UFO conspiracy connection.
There's another picture. There's a news copter came in. Look at the first 3 discs. When they see the copter, they start to turn invisible or put their shields up, and the first 3 crafts, they go out in a series, are just becoming invisible when he snapped the picture. It was taken with a Polaroid at a 30th of a second, so it caught it right in the net of going out there. These discs were designed by German technology in the late 40s. The first ones we know of that were tested out were probably around 47 or 48. They're called VRIL levitation devices. As you can see, they actually fly quite well. Notice the nice V formation. Being typical earthbound Air Force pilots, they're still flying in formation. We understand this technology a little bit because intelligence has shot down some of their ships, learned how they're doing it, and when you hear rumors about how the Americans are building flying discs, what we're doing is playing catch-up to the German technology that's been around since the 40s. Their technology has accelerated tremendously. They make 2 different types of levitation devices. That's what we're doing out at Area 51. We manufacture the devices in San Diego. They're put together by General Electric. We test them at Area 51. Here's the German disc parked down on the ground at a facility down in Brazil. Here's 4 guys standing next to it down there. There's a whole row of them. You couldn't count how many were down there. He had his Polaroid with him and grabbed a few short shots here. Over here's 2 guys here and a craft coming in. You can see the 2 guys standing here. And down here at the bottom, which I know isn't clear, is one of these old bell-shaped crafts. Many of you are probably not familiar, but there was a fellow named George Adamski back in 1962 who claimed to be having contacts with people from Venus. This was the craft he was taking pictures of. George's contacts were real, but he wasn't having contacts with anybody from Venus. The blonde-haired ladies that were inside the craft were actually from Brazil. That's where the crafts were flying out of. They've been making them down there since about 1947. They find it very convenient if they make contact or land somewhere to tell people they're extraterrestrials, and we're very open to it. If they tell them, hi, we're part of a German intelligence group from Brazil, people would freak out. I got my camcorder and I've got my micro lens on here getting as close as I can to this picture. It's a very, very small Polaroid picture that's about that big, and it got wet in the rain. He left it in the windowsill. So I've ironed it and put it on paper so we didn't lose it. And I'm copying it with my macro. Here's the whole picture. Over here is one of the old bell-shaped discs. There's one in the air. Notice the platforms they're sitting on. There's a guy standing here. There's a guy over here just coming out of this disc.
A short pause here to compare this craft to the one from Italy. Remember that one? Notice the rounded sections at the bottom of both of these discs. Let's go ahead and continue.
I'm trying to get real close to the bottom of it here so we can see what they're like. This is an area, if you look on a map, I've got a little videotape over there if you're interested in learning more about this information called Space Cities. I've narrowed it down to about within a 200-mile range where this facility is at and what they're doing down there. Here's the guy standing there. The discs sit down on the platforms. Remember earlier I was telling you about how the condensers charge out the bottom to have to charge the field up? If you get too close to the Earth, the charge dissipates because it's grounded. These metal platforms, they sit them down on the platforms, then they can keep the ship charged up. And if they need to take back off right away, they can. They don't have to wait for the ship to charge back up. The platforms charge them up for them, so they can lift right back off. If they would set it down without the platform on the tripod legs, they got to go through the process again of charging the capacitors up, which takes 3 to 4 minutes. So if they're in a hurry to get away, they're in big trouble. These old bell-shaped discs actually have 3 Mercedes-Benz truck engines in them, driving the magnetic field. This was their first design that they made. This was the first ones that the Germans built. These craft here were under consideration, and they were working on them in the end of World War II. When you hear about Hitler's secret weapon at the World War II, if you go back and look at the newspapers, that's what he was talking about. They were in hopes they would get these things up and working, and they would still have a chance then to win the war. Fortunately for all of us, they did not, or we'd all be speaking German today. Interesting side effect, too, once they finally did get them up and working, they made lousy war weapons because the field around them prevents you from dropping bombs or anything out of them. It ignites the bombs. So it took them a while. They don't even have weapons on them for a while, and then they had to come up with other kinds of devices. This was the first pictures I saw from the kid in Florida of his German contacts, and to my knowledge, I still think they're his best and perhaps his only contacts. I think he probably had a couple of contacts from these people. They came, they took him for a ride, it looks like on 1 or 2 occasions, and then perhaps they never came back. So we found this situation on several people around the planet, so it's not an uncommon situation.
And this is from ET technology, but it was before 47.
It wasn't ET, nothing to do with ET.
It wasn't.
No, just good old German intelligence figured it out. I can tell you where they got it. It's kind of a long story, but basically it came from German people who had traveled to India to study the concept of the VRIL, the energy of the universe, and they were trying to figure out how to levitate their own bodies to move in time. And they came back and they explained it to people what they were doing in India, how they were trying to travel in time. And some German engineers tried to build a machine to travel in time, but when they turned the thing on and lifted up off the floor instead, they didn't time travel, but it floated. And they stumbled onto the idea of how to make what's called a VRIL levitation device. We think they did that probably the first time and sometime probably around 25 or 27. And then the concept laid around in private circles for a while and then became a potential thing during the war and then really didn't happen until after the war.
So, interesting stuff. Again, the whole presentation will be linked in the description down below if you're interested in watching the whole thing. But for now, what can we take away from this clip? For starters, in the first pictures, he shows a shot of a formation of flat bottom discs, as he describes them. And if you've been following my channel for a bit, you've seen that we've featured this type of craft before. I'll link to these videos above. Another thing that I already mentioned is that these discs look very much like the Antonio Urtzi claimed UFO videos. Here's a couple of short videos on that. Then I took notice of a couple of things that I saw and that were also mentioned. One is that the ships they supposedly built didn't make for great war machines because they couldn't drop bombs out of them because they'd get ignited when they left the craft, which reminded me of something that Lazar said during the interview with Joe Rogan.
Really know.
I think it's mainly the technology. They just want to keep the technology secret because
military.
If there's
whoever gets this wins, dude. They win.
You control the war. You literally become invincible once you master the technology. You cannot penetrate a field like that. So imagine I know it's all science fiction, but science fiction turns into science fact. If you have real force fields around aircraft and battleships, you win.
Lazar also said,
well, you really have to look at the way the gravity wave comes out of the craft. There's the reactor's in the center, and there's a waveguide that goes up to the top. There's actually a small appendage that sticks out of the top of the craft,
which we can kind of reference here, and what we get to see to be a sort of antenna piece at the very top, which could be related to what Lazar was talking about. Now let's go ahead and circle back to the term VRIL, and this is where things get either really deep or just really science fiction-y. Now, just so you know, I'm not going to dig too deep into the VRIL lore that's been around the internet for a while, but in short, it's supposed to be a society led by Maria Osrich, an Australian medium. You can easily find more information on it if you Google VRIL Society. But what I really wanted to reference was this clip, and I'm sure you've all seen it before. The 1977 UK broadcast interruption by acclaimed extraterrestrial. Let's go ahead and watch part of it. I'll put a link to the entire video in the description down below for the people who haven't seen it.
This is the voice of Allah, representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command, speaking to you. For many years you have seen us as lights and shadows.
But did you all catch that? The voice in the broadcast interruption was supposedly the voice of an extraterrestrial named Vrillon. And I understand that all sounds very science fiction, but the message he puts forth is a positive one. And it rings familiar with a lot of UFO stories where extraterrestrials contact humans and give them warning on how we're headed towards disaster and that we need to change our ways. But let's talk about a few things. For starters, this transmission really did happen. Someone actually interrupted a UK news broadcast around 5 p.m. on the 26th of November in 1977, and you gotta ask who and why. What do you think happened here? Was this just a huge elaborate prank by some weird disgruntled employee of the station? Was this a private secret group trying to make us aware of the presence of the VRIL Society? Or could it be that this was the UK government's version of Orson Welles' 1938's War of the World broadcast to see how society would react to it and handle the news? Or, was it really an extraterrestrial sending us a desperate message to the human race? So many questions. And back in 1977, it wasn't as easy to get to the bottom of things as it is now, and the entity that was responsible for the message was never identified. So on one hand, we have this Vrillon transmission, and on the other hand, we have these VRIL ships. Quick side note, can you imagine being a young person watching the news one day back in 1977 before the internet, before all the knowledge you have now, and all of a sudden your broadcast is interrupted by this supposed alien? How would you react? I know for sure I'd be left spooked and with a whole lot of questions. And just one note I'd like to end on. I know a lot of people think that these things are just complete nonsense. But for those of us who have seen a UFO, or lights in the sky as I have, lots of questions in the moment are left unanswered when you experience a UFO. And among the questions are, 1. Where did they come from? And then when they leave, where are they going? So what do you all think? Is there a connection here? Let me know in the description down below. Also, let me know if you'd like us to make more of these type of videos, or if you prefer for us to stick to the Analyzing Today's UFO series. So now it's time to talk about our November hoodie giveaway. Each month for the foreseeable winter season, we will be giving away one free embroidered pullover hoodie to one lucky subscriber of this channel. All you have to do is read the rules, be subscribed, and leave a comment on a video dated later than October 16th and prior to November 13th, and you'll be entered for a chance to win a hoodie this month of November. Winner will be announced on November 15th, and I'll leave a link to the rules page in the description down below. Also, if you don't want to wait to get a hoodie, you can get one now at loveUFOshop.com. It'll really help support the channel. Thank you so very much for watching. Please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any of this content. And as always, this is Jesse, and let's keep searching for the truth because we love the UFOs. Till next time.